The last thing I saw before the car hit me was my grandmother's emerald engagement ring sparkling on Sophia's finger as she waved goodbye from Marcus's penthouse window. My best friend, my husband, my ring. The irony wasn't lost on me that I died staring up at the very apartment I'd paid for, watching the woman I'd trusted most in the world wearing the family heirloom I'd treasured above all else. The same ring Marcus had sworn was being cleaned when I'd asked about it last month. Blood pooled beneath my head on the cold asphalt, but all I could think about was how stupid I'd been. 3 years of marriage, and I'd never once questioned why Marcus suddenly needed access to my trust fund for a business investment. Never wondered why Sophia always knew where he was when I couldn't reach him. Never suspected that their convenient friendship had blossomed into something that made a mockery of everything I'd believed in. The ambulance sirens grew fainter. My vision blurred. And with my last breath, I made a promise to whatever force might be listening. If I ever got a second chance, I would destroy them both. I woke up gasping, my hand instinctively reaching for the emerald ring that should have been on my nightstand. It wasn't there. Confusion flooded through me as I took in my surroundings. This wasn't the hospital room I'd expected, assuming I'd somehow survived. This was my old bedroom in the Morrison mansion, the one I'd shared with Marcus before I'd foolishly agreed to move into the penthouse downtown. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. The date made my heart stop. September 15th, 2023. Exactly 1 year ago. The day I'd signed the documents transferring 60% of my inheritance to Marcus for his revolutionary tech startup. I sat up slowly, my mind racing. This had to be a dream, some kind of stress-induced hallucination. But the silk sheets felt real beneath my fingers. The morning light streaming through the windows was exactly as I remembered it. Even the faint scent of Marcus's cologne lingered in the air. No, this was real. Somehow, impossibly, I'd been given exactly what I'd prayed for in those final moments. A second chance. And this time, I knew exactly what my husband and best friend were capable of. The bedroom door opened, and Marcus walked in with that charming smile that had once made my heart flutter. Now it made my stomach turn. "Morning, beautiful. Sleep well?" He leaned down to kiss my forehead, the same gesture that had once felt loving but now felt like a brand. I forced myself to smile back, already slipping into the role I'd need to play. "Like a baby. You?" "Great. Listen, about those documents we discussed." He sat on the edge of the bed, his expression shifting to that serious, trustworthy look I now recognized as completely fabricated. "I know it's a big step, but this investment opportunity won't wait. Tech moves fast, Elena. If we don't act today, we'll lose everything." In my past life, I'd signed those papers within the hour. I'd believed him when he said it was just a formality, that the money would be returned with massive profits within 6 months. I'd trusted him because I loved him, because I thought he loved me back. Now I knew better. "Of course, darling." I placed my hand over his, marveling at how easily the lies rolled off my tongue. "But first, I want to call Sophia. She knows about investments, right? Maybe she could look over the paperwork just to be safe." Marcus's eyes flickered, barely perceptible, but I caught it. In my past life, I would have missed it completely. "That's probably not necessary. My lawyers have already reviewed everything." "I'm sure they have, but Sophia's so smart about these things." I tilted my head innocently. "Unless you think there's some reason she shouldn't see them?" "No, of course not." His smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I just think we should keep our financial matters private." "How interesting." In my past life, Sophia had known about the investment before I did. She'd even encouraged me to sign, claiming she'd done her own research. Clearly, that research had involved a lot more than market analysis. "You're absolutely right," I said, standing and moving toward my walk-in closet. "Privacy is so important in a marriage, don't you think?" I selected a cream-colored Chanel suit, armor for the war I was about to wage. As I dressed, I could feel Marcus watching me, and I wondered if he was thinking about how much my clothes cost, how much my jewelry was worth, how much money would soon be flowing through his accounts. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Coffee later? I have so much to tell you." I stared at the message, remembering how excited I'd been to meet her that day. She'd told me about a new guy she was seeing, someone amazing, but who she had to keep secret for now. I'd been so happy for her, so supportive of her mysterious romance. The irony was suffocating. I typed back, "Rain check? Marcus and I have some business to take care of." Her response came immediately. "Business? On a Saturday? That man works you too hard." If only she knew what kind of work she'd been doing for him. "Ready?" Marcus asked, holding up a manila folder I recognized all too well. "More than ready." We drove to his lawyer's office in comfortable silence. Marcus hummed along to the radio, completely at ease. Why wouldn't he be? In a few hours, he'd have access to enough money to fund his affair in style, buy Sophia expensive gifts, and rent that penthouse where they'd eventually display my grandmother's ring like a trophy. The lawyer, Richard Steinberg, greeted us with professional warmth. "Mrs. Morrison, so good to see you again. I trust you've had time to review the documents?" "Actually," I said, settling into my chair with a smile, "I'd like to make some changes." Marcus stiffened beside me. "Changes, Elena, we discussed this. The terms are very specific." "Oh, I'm not changing the investment structure," I assured him. "I just want to add some protections." Richard raised an eyebrow. "What kind of protections?" I opened my purse and pulled out a small digital recorder I'd grabbed from my home office. "First, I'd like to record Marcus explaining exactly what this investment will fund, in his own words. For my records." The color drained from Marcus's face. "That's really not necessary." "I insist." My voice carried a steel I'd never used with him before. "Surely there's nothing you're hiding from your wife?" Richard cleared his throat. "That's actually quite prudent, Mrs. Morrison. Due diligence and all that." Marcus had no choice but to comply. For the next 20 minutes, he stumbled through an explanation of his revolutionary app platform that I now knew was complete fiction. Every lie, every fabricated detail, every impossible promise was captured in crystal clear audio. "Wonderful," I said when he finished. "Now I'd like to modify the agreement to include a clause requiring monthly financial reports and full transparency about all business dealings." "Elena," Marcus said, his patience clearly wearing thin, "you're being paranoid." "Am I? Because a wise woman once told me that trust without verification is just stupidity." I looked him directly in the eye. Surely my husband has nothing to hide from me. The next hour was delicious torture. I watched Marcus squirm as I added clause after clause, each one designed to make it impossible for him to steal my money without immediate detection. Richard, clearly earning his hefty fee, worked to accommodate every request. "One final thing," I said as we prepared to sign. "I want to change the power of attorney designation." Marcus went completely rigid. "What?" "If something were to happen to me, I don't want you to have sole control over my assets." I turned to Richard. "I want to split the power of attorney between Marcus and my cousin David." This was the kill shot. David was a forensic accountant who'd never liked Marcus and would scrutinize every penny. In my past life, Marcus had been named as my sole beneficiary and power of attorney. When I died, he'd inherited everything with no oversight whatsoever. "That's unnecessary," Marcus said, but his voice cracked slightly. "Is it? Because David's very good with numbers, and I trust his judgment implicitly." I signed my name with a flourish. "Don't you want someone watching out for my interests, darling?" We drove home in tense silence. I could practically see the wheels turning in Marcus's head, calculating how much more difficult I'd just made his theft. The monthly reports alone would require him to actually create a legitimate business, something he'd never intended to do. As we pulled into our driveway, my phone rang. Sophia. "Elena, I just had the most amazing lunch. You'll never guess what happened." I put her on speaker, watching Marcus's reaction carefully. "Tell me everything." "So you know that guy I've been seeing, the mysterious one?" Her voice was practically bubbling with excitement. "He bought me the most incredible gift." "Oh, what kind of gift?" "A ring. This absolutely stunning vintage emerald piece. He said it reminded him of my eyes." She laughed, the sound like nails on chalkboard. "I know it's probably not real. He's not exactly wealthy. But it's the thought that counts, right?" My grandmother's ring. The one Marcus had inherited when we married. the one that had been in his family for 4 generations before they'd lost their fortune and married into mine for money. I watched Marcus's knuckles turn white as he gripped the steering wheel. "That sounds lovely," I said sweetly. "You'll have to show it to me sometime." "Definitely, maybe this weekend? I'm dying for you to meet him properly." "I'd love that." I ended the call and turned to Marcus with an innocent smile. "Isn't it wonderful when people find love?" He didn't respond. That evening, I sat in my home office reviewing the modified contracts while Marcus made phone calls in his study. Through the thin walls, I could hear fragments of increasingly frustrated conversations. "The terms have changed. No, she added oversight clauses. I don't know how she knew to do that. Yes, the monthly reports are mandatory." My computer chimed with an email from Richard's office. The final executed agreements. I downloaded them immediately and sent copies to David with a note explaining the situation. My cousin responded within minutes. "Elena, these contracts are brilliant. Whoever advised you knew exactly what they were doing. I'll monitor every transaction personally. If there's even a hint of fraud, we'll catch it immediately." Perfect. I was just shutting down my computer when Marcus appeared in the doorway, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "Peace offering?" he asked, extending one toward me. I accepted it with a smile, remembering how he'd done this same thing in my past life. I'd drunk the wine and fallen asleep early, never knowing he'd spent the night texting Sophia about their plans for my money. "What are we drinking to?" I asked, raising my glass. "To trust," he said, clinking his glass against mine. "And to our future." I took the smallest sip possible, to getting exactly what we deserve. He drank deeply, clearly needing the alcohol. I pretended to match him while secretly dumping most of my wine into the plant beside my desk. "Elena," he said after a moment, "about today. I hope you know I'm not upset about the additional safeguards. It shows you're being smart with your inheritance." "Our inheritance," I corrected. "We're married, Marcus. What's mine is yours." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. Our inheritance." Over the next few weeks, I settled into my new role as the devoted wife with hidden steel. I attended charity galas where I smiled sweetly while gathering information about Marcus's real activities. I had lunch with Sophia, listening to her gush about her mysterious boyfriend while cataloging every detail she revealed. I played the perfect corporate wife while secretly building a network of allies who would prove invaluable when the time came for open warfare. The monthly financial reports began arriving in October, and they were masterpieces of creative accounting. Marcus had technically created a business, Morrison Tech Solutions, but it was little more than a shell company designed to funnel money into his personal accounts. He was paying himself an exorbitant salary as CEO while subcontracting the actual work to overseas firms for a fraction of the cost. David caught the discrepancies immediately. "Elena, you need to see this," he said during our private meeting at his downtown office. "Your husband is stealing from you in broad daylight. These invoices are completely fabricated, and the bank records show money flowing directly into accounts he controls." I nodded, unsurprised. "How much?" "So far, about $800,000, but that's just the beginning. Based on these projections, he'll have drained the entire investment within 6 months." In my past life, I'd never seen a single report. Marcus had fed me lies about development delays and market challenges while systematically stealing every penny. By the time I'd started asking questions, it was too late. "What do you recommend?" I asked. David's smile was predatory. "We document everything, build an airtight case, then we destroy him legally and financially." "And personally?" "That's up to you." I thought about Sophia wearing my ring, about Marcus's hands on my body while his heart belonged to someone else, about the 3 years of my life I'd wasted believing in their lies. Let's destroy him completely. November brought the charity auction where, in my past life, I'd first spotted Sophia wearing my ring. This time, I was prepared. I wore black, Valentino, with diamonds that caught the light like ice. Marcus wore his lucky tie, the one he'd claimed was his power tie, but which I now knew was Sophia's favorite. "You look incredible tonight," he murmured as we entered the ballroom. "Thank you. So do you." I squeezed his arm affectionately. "Is Sophia coming tonight? I haven't seen her in weeks." A muscle twitched in his jaw. "I think she mentioned she might stop by." She arrived fashionably late, stunning in red silk that emphasized every curve. And there, glittering on her right hand like a beacon of betrayal, was my grandmother's emerald ring. Elena! She air-kissed me with practiced precision. You look absolutely divine. Marcus, doesn't she look divine? Beautiful as always, Marcus agreed, but his eyes were fixed on Sophia's dress. I stared at the ring, letting hurt and confusion color my expression. Sophia, that ring is gorgeous. Where did you get it? She glanced nervously at Marcus before answering. Oh, this old thing? A gift from someone special. It looks familiar somehow. I tilted my head, studying it more closely. The setting is so unique, almost like... Elena, Marcus's voice carried a warning. Shall we find our table? But I wasn't finished. It's just that it reminds me of my grandmother's ring. You know, the one that went missing from my jewelry box last month? The family heirloom Marcus inherited when we married? Sophia's face went white. Marcus looked like he might be sick. What a strange coincidence, I continued brightly. 2 identical antique emerald rings. What are the odds? The silence stretched between us, heavy with implication. Around us, the charity auction continued, but I could see other guests beginning to notice our little drama. Finally, Marcus cleared his throat. We should discuss this privately. Should we? Because I'm starting to think there's been some kind of mistake. I looked directly at Sophia. After all, surely my best friend wouldn't be wearing my grandmother's ring without mentioning where she got it. Sophia's composure cracked. Elena, I can explain. Please do. She glanced at Marcus desperately, but he was staring at the floor. Finally, she slipped the ring off her finger. You're right, it is yours. I found it, in my purse. I have no idea how it got there. The lie was so transparent, it was almost insulting. How strange. And you just decided to wear it tonight without mentioning it to me? I forgot I had it. You forgot you had a priceless family heirloom. Yes. I held up my hand. Well, thank you for returning it. She placed the ring in my palm, her fingers trembling slightly. The metal was warm from her skin, and I felt a surge of revulsion at the thought of how long she'd been wearing it. How many times Marcus had seen it on her hand and said nothing. I should get going, Sophia mumbled. Early morning tomorrow. Of course, drive safely. She fled, leaving Marcus and me standing alone among the auction guests who were pretending not to stare. Elena, Marcus began, but I cut him off. Not here. I slipped the ring back onto my finger where it belonged. We'll discuss this at home. The ride back was silent except for the clicking of my heels against the car floor as I drummed my fingers impatiently. Marcus kept glancing at me, but I stared straight ahead, my expression carefully neutral. Once we were inside, he tried to take control of the conversation. Elena, I know what you're thinking, but it's not what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like my husband gave my family heirloom to another woman. She's been having financial troubles. The ring was collateral for a loan. Another lie. I almost admired the creativity. A loan? From whom? He hesitated. From me. You loaned Sophia money using my ring as collateral. Yes. Without asking me, I knew you'd want to help her. So you just took my most precious possession and handed it over to her. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Marcus? I turned to face him fully. Explain to me how my best friend ended up wearing my dead grandmother's ring at a charity auction while I thought it was missing. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly scrambling for a believable story. Look, Sophia came to me in tears last month. She was behind on rent, about to be evicted. She begged for help, but she insisted on offering collateral. I suggested the ring because I knew it was valuable and because I thought you'd approve of helping a friend. And you've been letting me search the house for weeks, thinking I'd lost it. I was going to tell you, when? After she defaulted on the loan and kept it permanently? He had no answer for that. I walked to the bar and poured myself a scotch, taking my time to let the silence build. When I turned back, Marcus was watching me with something approaching fear. I want to see the loan documents, I said finally. What? The loan documents. If this was a legitimate business transaction, you'll have paperwork. Interest rates, repayment terms, default clauses. I want to see all of it. Another long pause. I We kept it informal, just between friends. How much was the loan for? 50,000. I nearly choked on my scotch. $50,000 for rent? She had other debts. Marcus. I set down my glass and walked toward him slowly. Are you telling me you used my priceless family heirloom as collateral for a $50,000 loan to a woman who was wearing it to parties like it was her own? He backed up a step. Elena, you're overreacting. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like either my husband is the worst businessman in history or he's lying to my face. I'm not lying. Prove it. How? Call Sophia right now. Have her confirm this story. The blood drained from his face. It's late. It's 10:30 on a Saturday night. Call her. Elena, call her, Marcus, or I call my lawyer. With shaking hands, he pulled out his phone. I watched him scroll through his contacts, noting that Sophia was listed under S Personal rather than her full name. He dialed, and I held my breath. It went to voicemail. She's not answering, he said, relief evident in his voice. Try again. This time she picked up on the first ring. Her voice was loud enough for me to hear. Marcus, what's wrong? I thought we agreed. He hung up immediately, but it was too late. We'd both heard enough. I stared at him in the deafening silence that followed. Marcus! Elena, I can explain. You've been having an affair with my best friend. It wasn't a question. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. No words came out. How long? I asked quietly. Elena, how long? 6 months, he whispered. In my past life, it had been almost 2 years by the time I died. They'd been planning my destruction for longer than I'd ever imagined. And the money from my trust fund? He didn't answer, but his expression told me everything I needed to know. You're not investing it in a business. You're spending it on her. Some of it. How much? Elena, please. How much of my inheritance have you spent on your mistress? Not that much. Maybe 100,000. Liar, the word cracked like a whip. David's been monitoring the accounts, Marcus. I know exactly how much you've stolen. His face went ashen. You've been having me watched? I've been protecting my assets. Something I should have done years ago. I walked to my purse and pulled out a manila envelope I'd prepared for this moment. Divorce papers, already filed. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises. He stared at the documents like they might bite him. You can't be serious. David's already frozen the business accounts. The house is in my name only, purchased with my trust fund before our marriage. The cars are mine. The boat is mine. Even that watch you're wearing is mine. Elena, we can work through this. No, we can't. Because while I might have forgiven an affair, I'll never forgive theft. You didn't just betray our marriage, Marcus. You stole from me. You used my love for you as a weapon against me. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I moved toward the door. Your clothes will be packed and waiting on the front steps tomorrow morning. Don't bother trying to take anything else. David's already documented every item in this house. Where am I supposed to go? I smiled for the first time all evening. I hear Sophia has a lovely apartment, though you might want to find new collateral for future loans. I'll be changing the locks in the morning. I left him standing in our living room, my living room, holding the divorce papers and looking like his world had just collapsed, because it had. The next morning, I woke up alone for the first time in 3 years, and it felt like freedom. David arrived early to oversee Marcus's departure and ensure he didn't try to take anything that wasn't his. I watched from my bedroom window as my soon-to-be ex-husband loaded his belongings into a rental truck, his movements sharp with anger and frustration. At exactly 10 a.m., my doorbell rang. Sophia stood on my front steps looking haggard and desperate. Elena, please, let me explain. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Explain what? How you've been sleeping with my husband for 6 months? How you've been spending my money? How you wore my grandmother's ring to public events while I thought it was lost? It wasn't supposed to happen this way. How was it supposed to happen, Sophia? Were you planning to wait until after you'd bled me dry? Or were you just going to keep playing the role of my concerned best friend forever? Tears started flowing down her cheeks. I love him, Elena. I really love him. Then you can have him, but you can't have my money too. What do you mean? I smiled coldly. I mean, Marcus is about to discover that his business accounts are frozen, his credit cards are canceled, and his access to my trust fund is permanently revoked. I hope you have enough saved to support both of you because he's about to be completely broke. You can't do that. I already did last night while you two were probably planning how to spend my inheritance. She wiped her nose on her sleeve, a gesture that would have seemed vulnerable a week ago, but now just looked pathetic. Elena, we can work this out. We're friends. No, we're not. Friends don't steal from each other. Friends don't lie for months while planning to destroy each other. Friends don't wear each other's family jewelry while sleeping with each other's husbands. I'll pay you back. With what money? You don't have a job, Sophia. You haven't worked in 2 years because you've been living off the allowance Marcus has been giving you with my money. Her face crumpled as she realized how thoroughly trapped she was. Without access to my funds, Marcus had nothing to offer her. And without Marcus's financial support, she had no way to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. What do you want from me? She whispered. Nothing. I want absolutely nothing from you except for you to disappear from my life completely. I started to close the door, but she grabbed the frame. Helena, wait. There's something else you should know. What? She looked around nervously as if checking for witnesses. Marcus, he wasn't just stealing money from me. He owes people. Dangerous people. What kind of people? Investors in his last business venture. The one that failed before he met you. He promised them returns that never materialized, and they've been pressuring him for payment. This was new information. In my past life, I'd never learned about any previous business failures. How much does he owe? $2 million. The number hit me like a physical blow, $2 million. More than he'd stolen from me so far, but not more than he would have stolen if I'd died as planned. That's why he needed access to your trust fund, Sophia continued. He was planning to pay them back, and then maybe we could start over somewhere. Somewhere like the Cayman Islands? I asked, remembering the mysterious bank statements I'd found in a study in my past life. She nodded miserably. He said we'd be free, that we could be together without hiding. After I conveniently died, of course. Her eyes widened. Elena, no. He would never. Wouldn't he? Because I'm starting to think my death was a lot more convenient than anyone realized. The color drained from her face. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe I should have a conversation with these dangerous investors. Maybe they'd be interested to know that Marcus has been playing them for fools, just like he played me. Elena, you can't. They'll kill him. That's not my problem anymore. I closed the door in her face and leaned against it, my heart pounding. The pieces were falling into place now. Marcus hadn't just been stealing from me. He'd been using my money to pay off debts he'd hidden from me. When that wasn't enough, he'd probably planned to take out life insurance policies, maybe arrange an accident. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Vincent Castellano. I stared at the name, recognition dawning. Vincent Castellano wasn't just any investor. He was connected to organized crime families in the city. If Marcus owed him money, my estranged husband was in more trouble than even he realized. I typed back, I'm listening. The response came immediately. Morrison's wife? Meet me at Rossetti's at noon. Come alone. Rossetti's was an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place where business deals were made and problems were solved quietly. Against every instinct for self-preservation, I found myself agreeing. I'll be there. 2 hours later, I sat across from Vincent Castellano in a private booth at the back of Rossetti's. He was exactly what central casting would order for a mob enforcer. Broad shoulders, expensive suit, eyes that had seen too much. Mrs. Morrison, thank you for coming. Call me Elena, and thank you for being discreet. He smiled, and I was surprised by how genuinely warm it seemed. Your husband has put both of us in a difficult position. How so? He owes my organization a substantial amount of money. Money he promised to repay using assets that, as I understand it, belong to you. $2 million. You're well informed. I'm learning to be. I leaned forward slightly. What exactly did Marcus promise you? Collateral. Specifically, your trust fund and various properties. He claimed he had legal access to everything through your marriage. He doesn't. So, I'm discovering. Vincent sipped his espresso thoughtfully. This creates complications. For both of us, I imagine. Indeed, my associates are not known for their patience with delinquent borrowers. I considered my options carefully. Vincent Castellano was dangerous, but he was also a businessman. And right now, we had a common problem. What if I could offer you something better than Marcus's empty promises? I asked. His eyebrows rose slightly. I'm listening. Information. Marcus has been systematically defrauding multiple investors, not just your organization. He's created false business documents, fabricated financial reports, and misrepresented his assets to secure loans. I have documentation proving all of it. That's certainly valuable, but it doesn't recover our money. No, but it might help you recover money from his other victims. Rich victims who might be willing to pay substantially for your assistance in recovering their losses. Vincent leaned back in his chair, studying me with new respect. You're proposing that we expand our collection efforts. I'm proposing that you treat Marcus Morrison as the career criminal he is, rather than just a delinquent borrower. And what do you gain from this arrangement? Peace of mind, and the satisfaction of watching him face consequences for his actions. We talked for another hour, working out the details of our unconventional partnership. Vincent would use his resources to investigate Marcus's other fraudulent activities, while I would provide documentation and financial records. Any money recovered from additional victims would be split between Vincent's organization and a charitable foundation I was establishing. As I drove home, I felt a sense of completion I hadn't experienced in either of my lives. Marcus had used my love against me, stolen my inheritance, and betrayed my trust. But now he would face justice from multiple directions, legal, financial, and criminal. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. David. Elena, we have a problem. Marcus tried to access one of your offshore accounts this morning. Tried? The attempt was blocked, but it triggered an automatic investigation. The bank is asking questions about the account's legitimacy. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar weight of Marcus's manipulations. Even in defeat, he was still trying to destroy me. What kind of questions? Money laundering, tax evasion, the usual suspects when large sums move between international accounts. But everything is legitimate. I know that, and you know that, but the bank doesn't. They've frozen the account pending investigation. This was exactly the kind of long-term damage Marcus specialized in, creating problems that would haunt me for years even after he was gone. In my past life, I'd probably never known about half the legal landmines he'd planted. How do we fix it? Full financial audit, complete transparency. It'll take months and cost a fortune in legal fees. Do it. Elena, whatever it costs, David. I want every account, every investment, every financial instrument completely clean and defensible. If Marcus has planted any other bombs, I want them found and defused. That's going to require a team of specialists. Then hire them. After I hung up, I sat in my car for several minutes, processing the magnitude of what I was dealing with. Marcus hadn't just stolen from me. He'd systematically sabotaged my financial life in ways I was only beginning to understand. But I had advantages now that I'd never had before. I knew his patterns, his weaknesses, his connections. More importantly, I had allies who could help me fight back effectively. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Vincent gave me your contact. We should meet. Detective Sarah Chen, Financial Crimes Division. I stared at the message, realizing that Vincent had already begun fulfilling his end of our arrangement. If Marcus was under official investigation for financial crimes, it would be much harder for him to continue his fraudulent activities or flee the country. I typed back, when and where? Tomorrow, 2 p.m., police headquarters. Ask for me at the front desk. The next morning brought another surprise. I woke to find a certified letter slipped under my door, a restraining order petition filed by Marcus, claiming I was harassing him and threatening his safety. I called my lawyer immediately. This is clearly retaliation. Jonathan Hartley assured me. He's trying to control the narrative and make you look like the aggressor. Can he do that? He can try, but given the evidence we have of his financial crimes, any judge is going to see this for what it is, a desperate attempt to deflect blame. What do I need to do? Nothing. Let me handle it. In the meantime, document everything. Every phone call, every text message, every interaction. If he's going to play dirty, we need to be prepared. At 2 p.m., I sat in Detective Chen's office, watching her review the documents I'd brought. She was younger than I'd expected, probably in her early 30s, with sharp eyes and an economy of movement that suggested deep competence. "This is extensive," she said finally. "How long have you been documenting his activities?" "Officially, about 6 weeks. Unofficially, I've been suspicious for much longer." "And you believe he's defrauded other investors besides Mr. Castellano's organization?" "I'm certain of it. Marcus is a career criminal who specializes in charm and misdirection. He finds wealthy targets, gains their trust, and systematically bleeds them dry." "What makes you so sure?" I hesitated, then decided on a version of the truth. "Because he did it to me for 3 years. I just didn't realize it until recently." She nodded, making notes. "We'll need to examine all of your financial records, verify the documentation you've provided, and cross-reference it with other ongoing investigations." Other investigations? Mr. Morrison's name has come up in connection with several suspicious financial activities. Until now, we haven't had enough evidence to pursue charges. And now you do? We're getting there. I left the police station feeling cautiously optimistic. Between Vincent's criminal investigation, David's financial audit, and Detective Chen's official inquiry, Marcus was being squeezed from multiple directions. Soon he'd have nowhere left to run. That evening, as I was reviewing legal documents in my study, my doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I could see Marcus standing on my front steps, looking haggard and desperate. I considered not answering, but curiosity won out. I opened the door but left the chain latched. "What do you want, Marcus?" "Elena, please, I need to talk to you. We're getting divorced. Talk to my lawyer." "This isn't about the divorce. I'm in serious trouble." "I know. Vincent Castellano sends his regards." His face went white. "You met with him? Elena, do you have any idea how dangerous—" "How dangerous what?" "How dangerous it is to lie to criminals about money you don't have? How dangerous it is to promise them assets that belong to your wife? He could kill me." "Then you should have thought of that before you stole $2 million from his organization." "Elena, please, I know I made mistakes, but I never meant for things to go this far." "What did you mean, Marcus? What was your endgame?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking more desperate by the moment. "I thought I could pay everyone back. The original plan was just to borrow against your trust fund, make some quick investments, return the money with interest. And when that didn't work, I kept trying to find a way to make it work. By stealing more money, by investing more aggressively, by gambling with my inheritance." He didn't deny it. "Marcus, why are you here?" "Because Vincent's people are watching me. Because the police have been asking questions. Because Sophia left town this morning and won't return my calls." Of course she had. Sophia was smart enough to run when the walls started closing in. She'd probably taken whatever money she could access and disappeared before Vincent's people decided she was a liability. "What do you want from me? Help me disappear, give me enough money to get out of the country, and I'll never bother you again." I stared at him through the crack in the door, amazed by his audacity. "You want me to fund your escape after you spent 3 years stealing from me? Elena, if they catch me, they'll give you exactly what you deserve. Please, I'm begging you." "The same way I begged you to tell me the truth about where my money was going? The same way I begged you to explain why my grandmother's ring was missing?" He had no answer for that. "Goodbye, Marcus. Don't come back here again." I closed the door and listened to him pound on it for several minutes before finally giving up. Through the window, I watched him drive away in the rental car, probably heading to whatever cheap motel he'd been staying in since I'd kicked him out. 3 days later, Detective Chen called with an update. "We've arrested Marcus Morrison on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and racketeering." "Racketeering? It turns out your husband has been running sophisticated financial scams for over a decade." You weren't his first victim, Elena. You were just his most successful mark. The words hit me like a physical blow. Everything about our relationship had been a lie from the very beginning. He'd targeted me specifically because of my wealth, courted me with the sole intention of gaining access to my trust fund. How many others? At least 6 that we've identified so far, probably more. What happens now? He'll be arraigned tomorrow. Given the scope of the charges and his flight risk, I expect bail will be denied. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back patio, watching the sunset over the city. For the first time in either of my lives, I felt truly free. Marcus was in jail, facing charges that would likely put him away for decades. Sophia had fled the state and would spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, waiting for Vincent's people to find her. My finances were being systematically cleaned and secured by the best specialists money could buy. The divorce would be finalized within weeks, and I would emerge from it with my inheritance intact and my future unlimited. In my past life, I died believing I was weak, gullible, and destined to be a victim. But this time, I'd proven that I was none of those things. I was intelligent, resourceful, and perfectly capable of destroying anyone who tried to destroy me. I raised my glass to the dying light. To second chances, I murmured, and to getting exactly what we deserve. 6 months later, I stood in the courthouse listening to Marcus's sentencing. 25 years for financial fraud. No possibility of parole for 15 years. He looked different now, thinner, older, defeated. The charm that had once made him irresistible was completely gone, replaced by the hollow desperation of a man who'd finally run out of marks to exploit. As the bailiff led him away in shackles, he caught my eye across the courtroom. For just a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved, or thought I'd loved. Then it was gone, and he was just another criminal paying for his crimes. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun, my grandmother's emerald ring sparkling on my finger where it belonged. In my purse was a business plan for the charitable foundation I was establishing, an organization dedicated to helping victims of financial fraud rebuild their lives. It seemed like appropriate justice. Marcus had spent years destroying people's futures for his own gain. Now I would spend my years helping them recover. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Audit complete. All accounts clean. You're officially bulletproof. I smiled and typed back, perfect. Time to start living. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was exactly where I belonged. Free, wealthy, and surrounded by people who actually cared about me. Marcus had taught me valuable lessons about trust and betrayal, but he'd also taught me something much more important. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, and I was done being anyone's victim.